Hello my friends, this is Total War Seraphim bringing you the second game in the TRU tournament, the TRU tournament. That is the tournament for the rest of us. This tournament is the best of three and chosen by predetermined teams, which will then switch. And if there's a tie, then the game goes to game 3, which will be a faction civil war, also predetermined. This is the second game I'm bringing you in the series. In this game, we're going to be watching two players, Lord and 7.62. I've chosen this specific game in which Lord plays as a Suebi and 7.62, a Russian player, plays as the Nervii. The map is Medlan, and this is quite an interesting game. So let's jump right in. So right off the bat, you can see that Lord has his army divided into 3 sections. He's got 1 middle force and 2 what I would call, or I'm sure what other people have called, independent flanks. They're capable of fighting independently from the middle. I think this is an incredibly good idea. In fact, I started playing as Carthage, and I imitated much of what Lord has shown me. Lord, I also have heard, has been receiving some tutoring from a very good player whom I will not mention, but it certainly shows, in my opinion. He's really upped his game, and it makes for quite a match. So right off the bat here, we can see the Nervii player, 7.62. He's brought a very heavy core of Oathsworn. Now he's brought 4 of them, and you'll see that in this match, that probably was not so good of a choice, not so wise. He's also brought Light Horse in lieu of the Mighty Horse, which really I think puts Nervii at quite a disadvantage. Lord has opted for a much larger, very light force, and as you can see here, the skirmishing has got underway. The Suebi are incredibly quick, and Lord uses a really great tactic this entire game of a kind of hit and run strategy, where he pushes up and takes advantage of his varied slingers and Cimbri bowwomen to basically eat away. In fact, right here you should be able to see that he is targeting the naked warriors of the Nervii, which are excellent targets. Their loincloth and their shield provide them, I think it's 10 armor, and so they fall very easily to any skirmish fire. They make for a very simple and efficient and cost-effective target. So here we can see he's divvying up his flanks, moving his right flank out, and targeting with his center flank. Excuse me, with his center, he's targeting the naked warriors. Now, 7.62 playing as the Nervii, he's not quite sure what to make of this, and I understand this because it's not enough to take one of the flanks. You can't just charge in. You can tie the units down, but any front, be it the left flank, the middle, or the right flank of the Suebi, Lord, is going to overpower anything that the Nervii can throw at him as it stands. 7.62 is trying to maintain a solid core, a front that I presume is purely about the melee attack and the rush. And Lord, wisely, in my opinion, is not playing into this strategy. Instead, he's playing a game of, as I said before, hit and run, moving his units up and retreating them as needed. So here you can see he seems to be trying to get better angles with his flanks as he pushes his slingers and assorted Cimbri bowwomen towards the flank. Now 7.62 obviously wants to close the distance and engage a melee, and if he could do that, I presume that 4 Oathsworn might, potentially could be enough to destroy Suebi if they were used correctly, or if they were given the time to tank out the victory. So here we can see the slingers firing right into the naked warriors, and you can see literally how quickly they drop. Each volley, I think when I watched it, it's something like 8 men per volley die to the incoming slinger fire. So 7.62 rushes ahead his spears in an attempt to tie down the Suebi middle, and here you can see that Lord simply just pulls away from it. He refuses to engage, and it's very intelligent. The Nervii don't seem to have the capability to tie down the infantry of Lords, of the Suebi. So here he is again, his left flank, he's pulling it back. Lord is playing very, very cautiously in this game. And, you know, every time I'm online, I attempt to play this. In fact, Lord was giving me some lessons on how to kite away and the micro that's involved and his strategies for doing so. And every time I went to practice against any players online, they would quit. And I can understand the frustration, especially when you bring an army like 7.62 has done here. He's brought this heavy core of infantry, and they're only useful if there's a straight up engagement. Now in the rules, I define that quote, both players are attackers, but this kiting method, if you will, is an attack. You're simply moving your units forward and then retreating them in time to then turn around and attack. That's still an attack. It's a great counterpick to 4 Oathsworn, whereas if Lord were forced to rush him, he might not have the infantry to do it. So I find this tactic particularly enlightening, especially for myself. I'm very poor at this micro, as we'll see in a future video. Jaw, I'm looking at you. So here we have Lord doing precisely as I've described. He's moving his flanks and his center up incrementally, so that his slingers and so eventually his bows as well will be within range and can just pick away at these naked warriors. And I believe he chose the wise target. A lot of these other units, like the Oathsworn, are going to have high armor and high missile block chance, and that might take a while. And again, I want to state this: 7.62 came to me after this game. I was watching it as they played, and you know, he tried to ask me for advice. And my friend, if you're watching this, 7.62, I'm probably not the best guy to ask for advice, but since you did ask, I will tell you this. You have to recognize the strengths of Lord's army here, and as you move together, these are devastating shots on the light horse. As you move together like this, it allows a player to pull back any part of his army independently, and Lord does a really good job here of keeping the distance between himself and that front line of spears, of the Nervii spears. If those spears are able to catch him, they'll tie down his infantry, and that'll allow the Oathsworn to get into battle without being countercharged. And the charges of these two factions is very, very important. Whoever can get the best charge isn't necessarily going to win, but they're going to be at an advantage, in my opinion. Take that for what it's worth. The other thing I would say, 7.62, is you have a total lack of the mighty horse, and that to me seems to really be the cost-effective strength of the Nervii. They can bring incredibly powerful horses for rear charges or even frontal assaults to stop the other barbarian factions from getting their infantry from countercharging their infantry, and I believe that it was a mistake in not bringing that cavalry. So here we see this again. Lord is content to move up his Suebi army into range. Here he's targeting the Celtic youths. It's seeing as it is the only skirmisher for the Nervii for 7.62, I can understand expending a few volleys on it. Especially here, as it turns its back, it's going to take losses. Anytime you have to retreat your units like that, they're going to take shots to the rear, and they're going to die profoundly quickly. So it's very key to not move into range and then move out of range. Now, obviously, in this case, Lord is creating that, and he's using the long-range skirmish capacity of the Suebi to deal great amounts of damage. It's really 7.62. It's really, I think, about your army selection choice. You're trying to play his game. You're trying to engage him, and when you can't, you turn around and you retreat like he does. But the problem is you don't have any skirmishers. You brought an infantry-heavy build, and you cannot close the distance. Now, I presume that the naked warriors, because they lack armor, might be able to catch up with the other units, but the problem is they're going to be susceptible to skirmish fire as well as cavalry charges. So you're probably not going to want to lead with them. Here again, we see losing unnecessary losses, especially with light horse, because it's so quick. You can move it out of range. You might even be able to bait some volleys with the light horse. Yeah, that first volley, wow, what is that, 7 men? So now 7.62 sees this, and he's pulling away the light horse, trying to apparently move it around the flank. And you know, at this point, I imagine that you would see Lord's tactics with the Suebi and possibly just charge him with the light horse frontally, even, just to tie down his units so that you could get your infantry engaged. So if you have to sacrifice a unit in order for it to become a holding unit while the rest of your units can then catch up, that's the only way I could imagine it working, but I don't. So here we have an engagement on the right flank, and Lord chooses this flank. He's getting this rear naked warrior charge. The naked swords, excuse me, 7.62 is, and they are just going to rack up kills. I mean, absolutely just chop right through them. You can in fact watch the kills rise right here. It's absolutely amazing. They are incredibly hard to get into battle correctly, but here Lord counters. With his berserkers, I believe, into the flank of the naked swords, and that's not going to go well. So again, Lord is kiting away in the middle, and that's actually very intelligent too, because it gives him time to micro elsewhere, while his main force does not have to engage. Here you can see exactly what happens when 7.62 is forced to micro on his left flank. He leaves the center out there, and he leaves his naked warriors entirely, naked swords entirely exposed. So here, the Oathsworn general is now engaged, and you know, it's just bad. And so 7.62 is bringing in his light horse into very, very capable spears, and those spears will just absolutely wreck the light horse. And if you were going to use the light horse, I think it would have been better as a capturing and holding force to get your infantry in, as opposed to running them headfirst into spears. I completely understand, my friend. I'm God Almighty, and my micro needs some help. But it really is trying to bring the best tools and trying to make them work, and to know what units are susceptible to what. So now we see that Lord has popped fast charge in his center. So the second you see this 7.62, you should be aware of what comes next. Now at this point, I don't know exactly what you could do, because you're such close proximity that the Suebi are going to close the distance, and so without that mighty horse to countercharge them right up the center, your infantry is going to take the brunt of that. And because your infantry is going to take the brunt of fast charge, it's going to be devastating to your infantry corps. Now, in my opinion, you've lined them up right. The naked swords are going to come into this, and they're going to get their kills. Here we see Lord just bringing in the noble cav right into the back of him. Probably going to bolts him over, maybe cause a little HP damage. So the Oathsworn seem to have won that engagement, and they're moving up on Lord's right flank. Here we see the naked warriors just absolutely eating skirmish and jabs, and they just will not stand up to it. It's very difficult to get them cleanly into battle. I've definitely seen it. So we can see the last of the skirmishers succumbing to the Suebi slingers, who are just beastly in the amount of damage they themselves can take. So again, it's unit selection. You didn't have any skirmishers to stand up to the Suebi skirmishers 7.2, and Lord just counterpicked with an army he's really excellent with. I've played more than a few games with them, and this is not a loss to be ashamed of. He can really bring it with the Suebi, and even myself, I'm really trying to imitate a lot of this independent flank and the coordination. So here we see the Oathsworn getting surrounded. On the left flank, they're going up against spears, which will hold, as Lord has shown me. Will hold for some time. The Noble Cav is running rear charges on the Oathsworn, and while they are incredibly tanky, they will lose, especially with Noble Cavalry running cycle charges. The right flank for 7.62 has crumbled entirely, so now Lord is bringing the troops that are left over to collapse on the Oathsworn in the middle, and this is how the cookie crumbles. That's it. So it was a close victory, and here we can see the kills for both sides. And I wanted to say that this was a particularly interesting game, in my opinion. Lord really demonstrated the strength of independent flanks and the ability to pick and choose your engagements. And unfortunately, 7.62 played right into that by bringing such a heavy infantry corps and a total lack of heavy, medium to heavy cavalry with which he could have possibly stopped the fast charge, or he could have tied down any number of units, including the skirmishers. And the skirmishers for Lord just absolutely ripped through the naked swords, and unfortunately it just doesn't work well. So 7.62, I really believe that it was just your unit selection and your desire to engage as one flank. When you divided up your forces, you weren't prepared for that, and unfortunately you lost the game. Congratulations to Lord, who will be moving on to play Rabbit. That will be Rome versus Tillus, I believe. So, in conclusion, I just wanted to say thank you all to all contestants. I really appreciate this, and I'm having a lot of fun with all this. This is Seraphim signing off. Be well.